Somebody had a hand right here.
How do you decide what your next book is going to be?
I want something from history, something that I'm interested in that I hope you will be interested in. So I have to guess there. There's a guess. And then, once I find that, I've got to be able to bring that thing from the past to the future, to right now. It has to have a so what. Who cares if we find the Ember Room? Who cares if we find the Library of Alexandria? You know, who cares about, you know, something on Malta right now? What does it matter? So once I put all that together, I got an idea. And I can go from there. The one place you will never find an idea, you know where it is? When you go look for it. It has to find you. It has to find you. You cannot go search. I'm going to go find an idea today. Nope, doesn't happen. Every idea for every novel I've ever had, I've stumbled onto it. Just literally, boom, stumbled onto it. Yes?
Steve, talk about how much research you do. Cotton Malone is all over the world, so there's got to be a lot of research.
It is. I do a good bit of it. It's about 300 to 400 books per novel. I buy most of them at the Chairman Book Mine down in Jacksonville, where I go. And I don't read 300 to 400 books, no, but I read large chunks of 300 to 400 books. I really do, a lot. And when I'm done reading them, I got notes they're about 8 inches tall of notes. I'm only going to use about 10, 15, 20% tops of those notes. The rest of it's going in the garbage. But it's there. So when I'm writing the novel, I have them and I can refer to them. So I'm learning the research, learning the history, and plotting the novel in my head as I'm going. There's no one can help you do that. You have to do that all by yourself. Yeah, yes.
So about your process, are you an outliner or are you like a pantser?
Well, I was an outliner, and you should be. All of you should be. You should be outliners. And your life's going to be so much better if you'll do that. What I do is before I start, I outline the first 100 pages. So that when I get started, I'm at least 100 pages ahead. But you always write faster than you outline. So you're going to catch up. And I do, always. So I try to outline 50 pages ahead of myself. I try to stay about 50 pages ahead. Anybody go to lunch yesterday? Sometimes they asked him the question about, you start a book, you know the end. Well, John knows the end, David does not. And that would drive me crazy not to know the end of a book before I start. And I'm like, John said that, he said, there's no way, and I agree with him. You know why? You know where you start a book? You start a book as close to the end as possible. That's where you start a book. As close to the end as possible. That's assuming you know the end, then you figure out how close can I get to that moment and start that novel. I'm talking about the action proper of the novel. From the time Cotton Malone gets involved to the time he ends it is usually 20. The shortest one's Patriot Thread, 24, and most of them are 36 to 48. One book, Charlemagne Pursuit, went 2 weeks. Only because, as I said, they had to travel. There was just travel. It took days to get back and forth to some of these places. I had one book recently. I didn't know the end. And I got 3/4 of the way through it and I said, it ain't working. There ain't no way that's going to work. And it was rough because I didn't know where I was going. So you don't know when to stop. That's the problem. You don't know when to quit. And Elizabeth read it, said it really sucked. And so I had to rewrite it anyway. So I rewrote the whole ending and fixed it. So, but that just shows you I didn't know the end and it really didn't work. Let's see, go.
Interjecting backstory and flashbacks, can you give us some suggestions of how to incorporate that within the story?
Well, it's just like in my genre. The hardest thing in my genre is incorporating action and information. It's a common thing. It's a problem when you first start out writing. If I was to give you my first 3 manuscripts and you read them, you would go like, oh gosh. I mean, because I didn't understand it. I didn't understand the concept of doing it. I would literally stop the story and then give you backstory, and then I'd start the story back up again. You cannot do that. No, no, no. One of the rules of writing is story never takes a vacation. So story never stops. It doesn't stop. It keeps going. With backstory, you've got to make it smooth. It's got to go in to where the reader reads it and goes, darn, I just learned something about that character, but I didn't feel like I did. And it's just a matter of practice of how you do it in. One of the things you don't want to do, I'll be reading the first chapter and I'll be reading the first few paragraphs. I'll go along and then all at once, here we go. Got to go back. Tell me all this crap that I don't need to know. Yeah, I get accused that my characters may not be fully dimensional, but I don't care. I don't really give a damn what that character did 30 years ago. I don't care what he did 5 years ago. I only care what he's doing right now. Right now, at this moment, right here. And I give you enough background that what he's doing makes sense to you. And that's all I really care about. Now, there are other books that are much more depth and much more involved, but it's not my thing. But don't stop your story to tell me the backstory, and don't start the novel off that way. Come later with that. You can space it out. You don't have to give me all that. So what I would recommend to you is read your genre. Find what, when you read it and you go, boy, that was cool. I just learned all about that character. It didn't bother me a bit that I learned all that. Went really smooth. Mimic that style. Question, somebody, yes ma'am?
About provisions, talk about how you...
Provisions, all right, here's how I write a novel, and everybody does it different. I know some people write the whole book all the way through before they do any editing at all. I can't do that. I write 50 pages. Then I edit 50, I write 50 more. I edit 100, I write 50 more. I edit at 150, write 50 more. I keep doing that all the way through. Then every once in a while I just stop writing and I read the whole thing all the way through, all by itself, just one shot all the way through. It takes usually a couple of days, and I'm editing there too. When I'm done, I go through a novel about 60 to 70 times, start to finish. If you're not going through your manuscripts that much time, you're not doing yourself much justice, because you've got to go through it that much. Now, that doesn't mean I read the novel cover to cover each one of those times. Some of the reads are just for verbs. I just look at verbs. It's the only thing I look at. Check my verbs all the way through. Another one is echoes. I want to make sure I don't have any echoes in there where I'm repeating words. I have a bad habit every novel of repeating one word. It's different every novel. I don't know why, but I just latch on. I latch on to that word, and she catches it every time. She says, here's your one this time. And I put the search on it, and sure enough, it's a zillion times. Others, I'm checking flow, just to make sure that everything's flowing right, going in a right direction. There's a lot of different rereads that I do. The continuity reads, the ones where you have to read every word carefully, 20, 30 maybe about half that continuity reads. So you've got to go through it. One of the rules of writing is rewriting. Writing is rewriting. Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned earlier you've been through and checked the verbs. What does that mean?
I'm looking for the best verb to go there. I'm also wanting to make sure I don't use was or had too much. We all have to use was, had, those kinds of things. But put, took, sit, no, I don't use those words. Look, I try to not use that. I don't use any, I try to find a better verb. I mean, he walked slowly. That's a terrible. Why don't you say he crept? It's a better word. It's a better verb. You can visualize it. Your verbs are your action words. They're the ones that bring the reader in and make them part of it. And I can't tell you how many writers don't pay attention to that. They don't care about the verbs. They just slop down whatever verb comes down because they're in a hurry to keep going. No, verbs are important. Very, 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 very important. And you want the best verb you can down. There used to be a book, it's called, it's the Writer's Descriptive Book, something like that. It had a whole section of verbs in there. So I try to get the best I can. I want to use good verbs. You do too. Good verbs. Stay away from was and had as much as you can, because you got to do it. Sometimes you have no choice. So don't do it where you actually have a choice. So a lot of times I put the was on and I start looking for all the was's and see if I can change those out to another word.